Hello all, and welcome to something that'll be a little different. It'll be me actually doing a movie review on this page. I've done movie reviews on my other page before, but I've decided that I'm going to stop listening to people and just put what I want to on this page, and that might not just be what I normally put on this. There's lots of other things I'd like to talk about, which I do have my other page for, but the audience isn't as big, so this is a much bigger audience, and for something like this, particularly this movie that I want to talk about, John Carter, I want there to be a bigger audience. If you read the description, it'll be something like "Don't listen to the critics" or something like that. To go see this movie, you should. Long story short, before I get into this big long rant, I'm probably going to get into. It's a good movie, very good movie. I would definitely go see it. If I was to compare it to another movie that probably came out recently of the same genre, action adventure, I would say it was better, in my opinion, than Captain America. But definitely not as good as, say, like Iron Man, or probably about, I enjoyed it as much as I did Iron Man 2, so there you go from there. Though I might be alone in that, we'll see. Anyway, so now that I've said that, let's get on to me talking about this. I've seen a lot of reviews about this, I've heard a lot of critics about this, and over the last, I'd probably say 10 years or so, I've really lost a lot of faith in critics, particularly movie critics, and critics in general, only because of the onslaught of the internet, the onslaught of YouTube like this, where you have guys that come on here, edit their videos together, try to be smartasses and this, to do movie reviews, and now you have the mainstream, I guess, critics feel like they have to go out and compete with those individuals. And because of that, I think critics have fallen into the same traps that people who just comment on movies fall into that kind of trap. And I think this is one of those movies. John Carter had a lot of negative buzz going into it for various reasons. I'm not exactly sure why. Though I will say that Disney definitely dropped the ball when it came to promoting this movie. But, it seemed like this movie was going to be dead coming out of the gates. And I think a lot of critics felt that way, so they said, why should we care? And so they took the chance to pan a movie that, in my opinion, didn't deserve to be panned. I think it was actually a pretty good movie. I've heard lots of people say good things about the movie. It's kind of weird. Critics say one thing about this movie, and yet people who actually go see the movie and spend their money to go see it say something completely different. And like I said, I don't have a lot of respect for a lot of critics, and I can name two reasons, and they both have to do with James Cameron. The first is Titanic. You have all these people now that pan Titanic, and I thought of that because I was at the movie theater today watching John Connor. Listen to me. I have Terminator stuck in my head. John Carter. I saw the Titanic 3D, poster. I've already heard jokes about, who would go see that, this, that, and the other. And yet, I'm always curious, these people who just go after that movie and say what a horrible piece of trash movie that was. What did they think of the movie when it first came out? Because if you go back and you read what most reviewers said about the movie, most critics said about the movie, it got high praise. There was a reason why it got nominated for all the Academy Awards it did. The reason why it won all the Academy Awards it did. It was considered a success of a movie, particularly considering how much was spent on the movie. And it amazes me that now you have people that pan it like they do, and yet never bring up the fact of, well, did they originally like the movie, and then just in hindsight said, maybe this movie wasn't as good, or maybe it hasn't aged as well as other movies. Whatever, but I always find that strange. The other movie is Avatar. I can remember when Avatar came out, and I saw Avatar very near the end of its run. That critics were saying, it was actually a pretty good, movie to go see it. There was more to it than just the 3D. I had a lot of people saying, this was a movie definitely to go out of your way and see. Made lots of money, all of that sort of stuff, and then like 6 months later, it was like people turned on the movie for some reason, and I'm not exactly sure why. I'm sure I will get comments telling me, because it's a piece of trash, and it's this and that and the other. Yet, again, I remember people really liking the movie, and people must have liked the movie because it made us so much money that it did. So, not that that's the end all be all of greatness, but I do think it counts for something. So that's kind of my issue with critics. Now I did go and see John Carter. I thought it was pretty good. I'm not going to say it was great, but I did think it was, well, I would say it was very good. And it was enjoyable. It's the type of movie that I always want to go see. I love seeing action-adventure movies. I grew up on action-adventure movies. John Carter, the actual book, A Princess to Mars, I've actually heard people criticize the fact that Disney didn't call it A Princess of Mars. I don't know too many people that get excited about a movie called A Princess of Mars. Maybe they should have called it John Carter of Mars, which at the end of the movie they kind of do call it, but, I think that probably would have been a little better. But I actually read the books when I was probably 13 or 14. I'm 38 now, or almost 38. I'm 37. And I found them when I was a teenager. I read them only because I loved watching Tarzan movies. I grew up on Tarzan movies when I was even younger than that. And the first Princess to Mars actually had on it from the creator of Tarzan. And so I read it, really enjoyed it. I've read all of those books and really liked them. The movie isn't a page for page translation, I would say, or representation of the book, and it couldn't be, because it would, first of all, would probably be NC-17 for nudity and violence, and I definitely changed some other things. When the story's 100 years old, it was a 100-year-old pulp story. It's a science fiction story only in name only. It's science fiction the way Star Wars is science fiction. And I'm a huge Star Wars fan. It's much more of a sci-fi fantasy, definitely more on the fantasy side of things. So there is that, and for that reason they definitely changed some things. The biggest thing that I thought during thing is I thought they dumbed John Carter down. In the book, he's much smarter. There's a lot of things where he's talking about the fact that he goes to Mars, he gains these powers, how he figures he gained these powers, all of that sort of thing. So, I've heard some people say that the movie wasn't easy to follow. I find that kind of hard to believe. Even though I knew the story, the people that I was watching the movie with, not that there was a lot of people because I saw it on a Monday afternoon, they seemed to be able to follow the movie pretty well, so I don't know about that. But again, this is just one of those things where it just really amazes me that people, they harp and harp and harp. And, there was even an article, I think it was in Forbes, that I saw where, since the domestic didn't do all that well, it was, this is a complete and utter bomb. But then when the international numbers came in, it was actually very good. And my whole thing was, this is a much better movie, much, much, much better, not that that's saying much, than Clash of the Titans, the new Clash of the Titans. And it got a sequel, and, which is kind of surprising to me. So, if that could get a sequel, I would hope a movie like this, which I do think was good, and hopefully word of mouth will get out and people will go see this, because, you've got a director from Pixar, who had directed good stuff. You have a story which is 100 years old. Science fiction is the basis of pretty much every comic book, every science fiction story that had any kind of action adventure that has come after it. This isn't a futurist story. This isn't your Jules Verne or Arthur C. Clarke type story. This is definitely more. This is a pulp story that had science fiction elements to it, and the fact that it has been around this long, it's been around 100 years, you can actually go and, I think there's an audio version of the book actually on YouTube that you can go check out. And it just really amazes me at some of the criticisms I've seen of this book, or not the book, but the movie. and the fact that I went and saw it. I was going to go see it anyways because I was a fan of the book. I was like, I hope this is really good, and maybe my expectations were set low. I don't know, from what everyone else had said, but I was actually pretty hyped about this movie, you know, only because I actually did research on it. Was like, oh wow, this might actually be a lot better than it looks like. You know, and not even counting kind of the comments I've seen from reviewers who were just like, oh, you know, this was inspired by Star Wars. No, it's kind of the other way around. You know, Star Wars, Avatar, you could even say, I heard a podcast where some comic book guys were saying, you know, and they were right. Superman, you could even, you know, there's similarities that you could see where they stole some of the ideas, because this is, again, a much older story. So, again, just kind of a rant on my case, from my part. I definitely go recommend seeing this. I actually thought it was, again, really good. Lots of special effects I thought were really good. I thought the story was pretty good for a story like this. I wouldn't say it's Indiana Jones level by any stretch of the imagination. You know, I'm one of those weird people that actually don't mind. I'm not going to say I love it, but I don't mind the Crystal Skull. But I definitely thought this was better than the Crystal Skull, which I watched on TV just the other night. So it was pretty fresh in my mind. You know, not probably as good as the other three, but no, that's pretty high praise still. It was really, really good stuff, and I definitely recommend, if you like that type of movie, if you waited for a good action adventure, which we usually don't get. We get something like the newer Clash of the Titans, which, you know, to me was just a horrid piece of crap, even compared to the original Clash of the Titans, which was, you know, for all of its faults, works, for all of its corniness, works, for everything that the movie shouldn't do, does well, and I think is enjoyable, and I think that's why people still watch it to this day. So, anyways, that's just kind of my rant. I just wanted to rant a little bit on that after, you know, and it's been holding up because I figured I would probably like this movie like it did, because I actually researched the movie, and I know I'm not the only one. There's lots of people that I follow on Twitter, not just geeks, but writers and all sorts of people that have seen the movie and were like, wow, this actually was a really good movie. I don't understand why, you know, it's getting the bad reviews and whatnot, but I think it just shows, like I said, I think people fall into that trap of, well, we think the movie's going to be bad, so it's going to be bad. And if you're a reviewer or a critic or anything like that, you can't go in. You have to go in with a blank slate. And particularly if you're going to call yourself a critic, you do need to do your homework. And a lot of people who have criticized this movie definitely didn't do their homework, and I think that's very sad, especially coming from someone who, you know, did major in journalism in college. That's just amazing to me that people would just, you know, not even do their homework. That seems like basic stuff to me. But anyways, that's all I had. Again, it just kind of amazes me that you have, you know, that you now have critics, in my opinion, falling, and it's been that way for, I would say, the last couple, you know, for a while now, particularly since the internet really boomed off, and you had, you know, you had the print media and the TV media, you know, particularly reviewers had to contend with, you know, people on the internet, and I think now they've become much like the people on the internet, which I don't think is good. You know, but that's just me. Anyways, with that, I'm out. Have a good one.